Subject headings are also called controlled vocabulary. All they are is an established set of words or phrases that are used to describe or classify articles in a database. What makes them so effective when it comes to articles in searching databases is it makes it very easy to understand how articles are described or classified. When using a controlled vocabulary, you don't need to guess how an article will be classified if you understand what the subject headings are or what the possibilities are for subject headings in a database. Subject headings are also called controlled vocabulary, and all they are established sets of words or phrases that are used to describe or classify articles in a database. The reason they're so useful is it makes it easier for you to understand how articles are described or classified or exactly what those articles are talking about, because the subject headings are going to alert you that regardless of what the title of an article might be, if it has a particular subject heading, that topic or subject is being discussed in that article. There are several advantages to using controlled vocabulary. Probably the biggest advantage is that it helps to make up for any vocabulary deficits you may have when you're searching for a particular concept or topic. Because what you'll find is that when you're doing any searching, there may be several different ways or terms to use to describe the same thing. By using a controlled vocabulary, you can overcome this somewhat. For example, when it comes to soda pop, there may be 6 different ways to describe it. But if you're using a controlled vocabulary, you don't need to know all 6 ways of describing it if you know what the subject heading is. In this case, when it comes to soda pop, if it is in fact the controlled vocabulary term, then it may stand for all 6 of these. So when you're going and you're looking at articles, what you may find is if any of these terms are used, Pepsi, Coke, pop, soft drink, regardless, if they're being used, they're going to be classified as soda pop. And so therefore, if you know what the subject heading is, you no longer need to try to figure out all the potential ways something can be described. A second advantage that comes from using controlled vocabulary is it also ensures that the concept or topic that you're looking for is going to be covered in the article. Because when you attach a subject heading to an article, what it's telling you or what it's telling the reader is that that particular topic is being covered in that citation. And so therefore, regardless of what the title is, if it has a subject heading, that subject heading is cluing you in that that particular article is going to be talking about your particular topic or concept of interest. A third advantage to using controlled vocabulary is it also allows one to focus a search or search more specifically. The reason is because when it comes to controlled vocabulary, it is mainly organized in what is called a hierarchical structure, going from a broad term, such as nurses here, to more specific terms as you go down the list or down the tree. And so therefore, you can become more focused as you're manipulating a search using controlled vocabulary. Something that's not always possible if you're doing something like, say, a keyword search. One thing also to notice is that when it comes to databases, the controlled vocabulary is always somewhat different because every database is speaking to a different population. Take for example PubMed and CINAHL here. PubMed is mainly a biomedical database with a special focus on doctors. And so when you're looking for items on nurses, what you'll notice is that it goes very broad to nurses and then is kind of general in the specific types of nurses that are discussed. Whereas when you go to CINAHL, which is intended for nursing and allied health professionals, you'll find that nurses is very broad, and then as you go down the hierarchy, that not only does it become very specific, it gets very specific. From not only talking about nurse managers or in things of that nature, but even breaking down nurses by education level, and even breaking that out even further into the various education levels of various prepared nurses. Another reason that subject headings or controlled vocabulary allow you to be more focused is that when it comes to a database, when you're searching with subject headings, it does not search the entire citation. When you're searching with keywords, it does. As you can see here, when you're doing a regular search, such as one that you would do in, say, Google, where you just put in terms and see what happens, every field you see here in red gets searched. Whereas when you're searching with subject headings, what you'll find is that only the subject heading field is searched. This is very useful because one, it ensures that what you're searching for is being covered, but also that you're not searching every field and finding that the particular term you're searching for shows up towards the bottom of the citation and is really not a topic that's being discussed within the article. This is the example that you'll see in CINAHL where this is the subject heading field with the subject headings broken out as major and minor subjects. Major subjects means it's the major focus of the paper. Minor subjects means it's covered, just not as to as great a degree. Another example of the subject heading fields is this example I have here that shows you PubMed. This is the subject heading field, so therefore this tells you what this article is about. And then you'll notice that there are these stars. The stars mean these are the major headings. And so if you were looking at this and you were trying to figure out what was covered and also what was the major focus, you may be very interested in these stars because they are what are telling you are the major headings of this particular article in PubMed. A last advantage of using controlled vocabulary is it helps you to deal with synonyms. In using a subject heading or a controlled vocabulary term, synonyms become less of an issue. An example of what I mean when it comes to synonyms is that when you search, doing a basic search as you have in many databases by just putting the term that you want in the box and hitting search, you get a lot of articles. And if I went through these articles and looked at them, what I would find very quickly is that there are some articles about the nursing profession, which is what I would be interested in, but there's also articles about other things. Let me go over here and open this search details box to show you what I mean. You'll notice here in this search details box that nursing is being searched all over the citation. But then as you also go through here, you'll also notice that I go from talking about nursing, which is potentially the profession, but also talking about breastfeeding. So when I look at that, the results of 613,000, what I'm getting are not only articles about nursing the profession, but I'm also getting articles about nursing as the practice of feeding a baby because it's using nursing and breastfeeding. If I want to stop that from happening or I want to prevent it from happening not as often, what I can do is use what is called a controlled vocabulary, which I will show you right now. In this case, I'm going to use the controlled vocabulary of mesh in nursing when I search for nursing by hitting search. When I do that, you'll notice that I get all of these controlled vocabulary terms. One, I get one that says nursing, and it tells me this is the term for the profession. You'll also notice in this list that I get one for breastfeeding, and it says the nursing of an infant. So if I was looking for articles about the feeding of an infant when I was thinking about nursing, I would use this one. But if I was just wanting the stuff about the profession, I could use this one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it and I'm going to search for it. And what you'll notice is I go from having 613,000 articles down to 227,000, and I can ensure that if I were to open one of these, that I would find that this article in fact does talk about nurses, such as this one right here on mental health nurses. You'll notice it talks about mental health student nurses, and if I look at the subject headings, you can see that nursing is in here, and there's no mention of breastfeeding or the feeding of a child. In review, the reason it's so useful or important to use controlled vocabulary when possible is because it will help you to make up for any vocabulary deficits you have when you're doing a search, especially on a topic you're not familiar with. It'll also allow you to focus your search more by allowing you not to search every field of a citation but just a subject heading field. And lastly, it's very important or useful because it allows you to get around the problem of synonyms in a search, therefore ensuring you that by using subject headings, you get less unrelated articles and therefore don't have as many articles to go through in trying to answer a particular question you may have.